We were just talking in the break how there's always something going on in the world, but in this part of the world, Israel continues to fight on multiple fronts. They still have hostages that they're trying to deal with. Capturing Gaza in the midst of all of this with the Houthis attacking their airport.
To bring you some breaking news, and we're hearing that Israeli and Houthi-affiliated media both saying that Israel has carried out airstrikes on the east of Hodeidah, and that's in Yemen. So what Israeli media are reporting is that 30 Israeli fighter jets carried out the attack. And this coming a day after the Houthis hit Israel's main international airport in Tel Aviv.
Except now with this situation where the Houthis or Ansarullah are saying that there is a different calculation here. And despite the fact they are already under fire, under Israeli and American airstrikes, they are still capable of launching their rockets. And this gives a kind of a picture of how much complicated this conflict is becoming.
Ali, the Israeli Prime Minister also, just about a day ago, after the missile strike from Yemen, promised to hit hard. Mm-hmm. And he said that Yemen, the Houthis, Ansarullah, would face the consequences, but that Iran would also face consequences from the strike.
The missile force of the Yemeni armed forces carried out a military operation targeting Ben Gurion Airport using a hypersonic ballistic missile. The missile successfully hit its target.
Yeah, well, what's really taking place here certainly is General Zamir came in on March the 5th, and he presented a new plan to the Prime Minister. Credit the previous chief of the Israeli Defense Forces for killing, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2/3, 75% of the Hamas fighters. But there's still several thousand left. And they did that in the past by conducting raids and then moving on to another area where there are Hamas fighters. General Zamir's plan is to take territory and then kill the Hamas or capture them in that territory and depose them from any future ability to have political control of Gaza. That's the end state. They recognize full well if they're not able to do that, it'd be impossible for them to leave Gaza and turn it over to some international force that would be willing to provide security for a new Palestinian-like government. All of that obviously is still circumspect and no decisions have been made.
There is no stronger pair of military forces in the world. But with all their power and with a year and a half of what Israel has done in Gaza and Lebanon and some actions in Iran and Iraq, they still haven't deterred the resistance from the different Arab countries and Iran and rhetorically from Turkey as well.
And that is something that the Houthis come out and say, right? The spokesperson says after previous strikes that we will not be deterred, and this is all in support of the Palestinians and the genocide that's taking place in Gaza.
That's right. And if you go back over the years, you see that the ability of groups that are fighting Israel, resisting it, their technical abilities have improved, and to the point where the Ansarullah in Yemen now have supersonic missiles that can evade some of the multiple layers of defense in Israel. The Iranians got some missiles into Israel as well back when they had their action last year. So the technical capabilities of these groups who are fighting Israel keep improving with time, as does the will to resist. But the Israelis and the Americans still have dominant force that can flatten these countries, which they've done in Gaza. They did it in parts of Lebanon several times. They're doing it in parts of Syria, more localized. And this is only a recipe, as the last 75 years tell us, it's only a recipe to have more intense warfare coming up around the corner. Because just like the Jews in history and the Israelis have never submitted to superior forces, whether it was the Romans or the Russians or whoever it was in history who subjugated them, they fought back.
Let's take a closer look at the Houthis, who they are. The Iran-backed group has carried out attacks across the Red Sea, positioning themselves as supporters of Palestinians during Israel's war on Gaza. The Houthis have targeted Israel with missiles and drones, aligning with other Iran-backed factions to oppose Israeli policies. Their naval operations have significantly disrupted critical international trade routes, triggering Western military responses and forcing the rerouting of global maritime traffic.
Yes, the Israeli fighter jets have bombed the Hodeidah seaport with nearly 6 air raids, and we are talking about also targeting the Bajil cement factory, which is the main factory also for supplying the Yemenis for their construction.
But from a military perspective, what is happening here is to finish off Hamas once and for all, so they cannot have any political ability to control Gaza.
Attack on the airport. And I just want to show for everybody here, Israel has an Iron Dome. And we can put it up here on the screen for everybody to see how it works. And obviously you know this very well, which is this is a way to intercept these missiles that are coming through. But one got through and hit the airport. It has been so successful.
Yeah,
there is a
absolutely.
rendering of a possible Golden Dome system here in the United States that we can show for everybody. This would be kind of a similar concept, if you can pull that up and everybody can see. This would be the idea of, you know, some sort of protection. Do you like this idea?
Well, first of all, it's desirable to have a new concept to deal with where technology is going. We can deal with point defense, is what essentially Israel is dealing with there. In other words, defend Washington, D.C., which we're currently doing, defending the West Coast against the North Korean missile attack, ballistic missile attack, which we're currently doing. We can do more of that on the ground than the United States. Not cheap, obviously. But the real threat is coming from hypersonic glide missiles. In the summer of 21, China launched what's called, apologize for the term, fractional orbital bombardment system, a hypersonic missile that was launched off the coast of China, circumnavigated the globe in the southern hemisphere and came back to China. While we knew it launched, we could not track any of it. So being we can't track it, we can't kill it. And advanced cruise missiles are getting to the point where their range is increasing, and likely they may have the capability to do much the same. So given that technology, how do we defend against that? The answer is in space. The point defense system that I just described prior cannot do that. So you need sensors in space, you need interceptors in space. That means weapons on satellites to do all of that. And you need a lot of them because you're dealing with the globe. You're not just dealing with IBM missile coming from Russia or China in the northern hemisphere. These things can circumnavigate the globe. And when they get back into the Earth's orbit, they're moving at 5 times the speed of sound, which is very difficult to defeat even in the Earth's orbit. So, desirable. The big question mark, is it feasible? We've got to do the research and analysis to make certain of that before we pour a lot of money at it. Listen, this is a presidential priority, and it has worthiness and desirability. But we got to be careful how far we go before we dump a lot of money on it. We're already going to put $25 billion on it to get us started in this. It could cost hundreds, but we've got to make certain that it is feasible.
The Israeli fighter jets have bombed the seaports and also the factory of the producing cement. They could also expand their targets because earlier, according to this military's spokesperson of the Ansar Allah, he says that they have imposed an all-out siege, aerial siege on Israel by targeting the Ben Gurion airport. Now we could witness also bombing factories and also the seaports, but we couldn't clarify or know exactly what's the expansion of goals for the Ansar Allah. But also we could wait for the military spokesperson to outline that what could the Ansar Allah do in the upcoming hours or days. As we are witnessing this escalation of between Ansar Allah fighters and the Israeli fighters and also the American forces, in order to undermine the abilities of Ansar Allah for nearly a month and a half, and so far the American forces couldn't undermine such military capabilities.